Soviet Union is no more, and the Cold War is...
The main thing is to give young pilots the opportunity to fly, to give them the opportunity to do what they would love to dedicate their lives to.
NATO designation, the Frogfoot. This snub-nosed attack plane is simple, sturdy, fast, and highly maneuverable. The SU-25 is the Russian fighter pilot's plane of choice.
As any pilot, every pilot loves his plane. I love my plane because I flew it over 15 years. You know, I want to tell you a story. We were flying planes to deliver them to the army of one of the friendly countries. When we arrived, one of the pilots stepped out of his plane and kissed it. This is how we expressed our love.
The Su-25 is their idea of our A-10. It has a decent 30mm gun, certainly not like the gun in the A-10, but it fires a big round and it'll punch a hole in a tank. It'll carry a lot of weapons on the outside, bombs, rockets. And what's interesting about the Su-25 is, once you punch everything off of it, it will go over Mach 1. The A-10 doesn't even come close. It slows down and stops right around 400 knots. Whereas the Su-25 will go straight through the speed of sound, and it'll turn on a dime at great acceleration.
Our planes can work in any weather condition. Our operating parameters are from +50, +60 degrees centigrade in the shade to -80, -60 degrees centigrade. This is a wide range of parameters from negative to...
Perhaps it's appropriate for a plane nicknamed Frogfoot to have such an unassuming and decidedly unglamorous home. This is the flight line at Lipetsk Air Base, in the wind-swept steppes of central Russia. By Western standards, it appears to be suffering from years of neglect and disrepair. Lipetsk is actually not much different from its days as an important Soviet airbase.
The Russians never took great care with their facilities. Crumbling concrete was a standard because Russian concrete was a very...
Military design policy, both practical and unfussy. Russian airplanes are uncluttered. In this Air Force, the emphasis is on sheer weight of numbers. The intent is to overwhelm the enemy, often at the cost of many pilots. Those who survive will most likely fly the Sukhoi 25. Like the US Air Force A-10, the Su-25 cockpit is a titanium strongbox. A barrage of 20mm gun rounds barely dents the flying tank's protective shield.
A knife-fighting type of airplane that will support the guy on the ground quickly, easily, and close. 25 does. And that's why frontal aviation will never get rid of it as long as they've got some money. It's a simple airplane. It's got 2 MiG-21 engines in it. Reliable, been around for a long time. They can throw them away like cordwood and put more of them in. You can belly it in and jack it up, do a few repairs and fly it off. It is a rugged, rugged airplane.
Enter the Su-25.
I was with a colleague of mine, a cameraman, and I think we were probably among the first journalists who've seen the Sukhoi.
Western stereotype of the robotic Soviet pilot held true.
The Soviet pilots had their orders, and they would not waver from these orders. Their order might be to move from point A to point B, and you could have an entire army of guerrillas moving underneath, and they wouldn't go to attack. Also, the Soviets tended to fight a very 9-to-5 war with their pilots. They would come in the morning and they would stop at midday and they'd be back at 2 in the afternoon. There was no element of surprise.
Punishing duty became the order for Soviet pilots. They were often sent on 5 missions a day. The conflict could no longer be called a 9-to-5 war. With less time to prepare, pilots depended more than ever on ground controllers who constantly corrected frog-foot maneuvers.
Sometimes we could not see a thing when we were flying, and we had to bomb according to the radio direction finder. Sometimes we could see a firefight over here, a firefight over there, so we could tell approximately where the front line was. I do not have any information that I have ever hit a civilian target, but it is possible. War is war, but I do not know about it.
Pilots knew that their bombs could stray anything up to 60 meters.
Russians began to get shy. They didn't roam the skies. They were all the time looking at their back. The pilots were afraid of being knocked out of the sky. And that's, of course, very bad for an attack pilot. When he begins to think about his own safety, he tends to release his weapons and flee instead of hanging there and attacking, helping the ground troops. And that's, of course, changed the Russian effort, the Russian army, and they began to get less and less effect.
The air war in Chechnya quickly exposed severe weaknesses in the Russian Air Force. Aging equipment, poor training, and an inability to overcome the weather.
From military and political points of view, we forgot our experience in Afghanistan during the war in Chechnya.
In modern Russia, respect for airmen comes at too great a price. Meanwhile, back at Lipetsk Air Base, a rare display of respect for Russia's pilots was shown. It was payday, the first payday these flying tank pilots have had in 3 months.